Clock's ticking to get the Providence schools ready.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
We've tried to get as much perspective as we can from everybody who's a stakeholder in the Providence City School situation, and I'm pleased to have Sabina Matos, the council president, here to talk about whatever new role the Providence City Council will have, which may be very little. So we'll figure out where they are, what the mindset is, the politics of it all, and the most important thing, the services to the kids and the teachers to get this thing up and running momentarily. Good Thursday evening to you. I guess it was a little messy in Central Falls last night. Headline here indicates that it was quite turbulent. Eyewitness News happened to be on the scene and caught it all.
For hours, it remained peaceful. Hundreds of protesters returned to the Wyatt detention facility Wednesday night to protest an ongoing practice. The privately operated prison has an agreement with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, to be paid to house about 139 federal immigration detainees as they await trial. Protesters marched down the street, chanting and holding hands, demanding this practice end. But then, just before 10 Wednesday night, the mood changed. You can see in this viewer video, a truck drove toward a group of protesters, creating a human chain across the entrance to an employee parking lot. Then pepper spray reportedly filled the air. Thursday morning, the state attorney general's office announced it's working with state police to investigate this incident. Secretary of State Nellie Gorbea also released a statement saying in part, quote, "This incident is also a painful reminder on the dangers of privatizing our prisons. When companies profit from putting people behind bars, you create an economy that does not value immigration or criminal justice reform. You also get situations like the ones last night at Wyatt, where the safety and constitutional rights of people are put at serious risk." Congressman David Cicilline, who represents Central Falls, tweeted in part, quote, "Wyatt needs to fully cooperate with the state police and the attorney general during their investigation." Governor Gina Raimondo also reacted to the video via Twitter, saying in part, quote, "I share the outrage Rhode Islanders are feeling about the incident depicted in the video at the Wyatt Detention Center. Our state and our nation were built on the idea that everyone has a right to express their opinion publicly and peacefully."
All right, you know, I think you need a slow motion replay. I think everybody needs to calm down. This thing will work itself out. Look, peaceful protest is peaceful protest. You block an entrance to a facility like the Wyatt, you've got, you know, you're in a high-risk environment, no doubt. It does not mean, and nor am I condoning, that anybody would have any motion of the vehicle at any. I'm hoping that this incident doesn't become larger than life, because it doesn't appear to be that way. At the same time, the reported call for help and backup needed to happen with the transmission in park and with no motion of the vehicle whatsoever. It's really as simple as that. And you don't put the car in drive until you're absolutely certain that everybody is 10, 15, 20 feet away. I mean, I would do that simply for my own personal liability. You know, never mind, I got to get to work or make a point. Anyway, the Wyatt is an interesting situation. Know that that's a privately run facility, and they're in the business of incarceration, and they were in trouble and still don't have a pro forma that makes a lot of sense. That the federal government is now operating on a higher level with the immigration activity that it has provides them a little bit more business. I'm not so sure, though, that this is going to end well for everybody, because the contentiousness between city government and the Wyatt and ICE and the protesters is just all part of the American scene these days, all created by His Honor, the President of the United States, who thinks this is the solution to immigration challenges versus this thing we've been struggling to find, which is reform. In the meantime, we have a headline here that reflects on our story. The Education Commissioner, Angelica Infante Green, as much as she good with the foundation underneath her, that is, threw the hammer down last week. Not unexpected. The President of the City Council is Sabina Matos. Welcome.
Thank you.
By the way, do you have a thought on what happened in Central Falls? I didn't bring you here for that, but I could hear you. I could see you kind of nodding your head. Well, I couldn't see if it was horizontal or vertical.
I saw the video and I was outraged to see that video. I think there's nothing that calls for to have the guard drive through people sitting down and protest. He should have waited until his backup came in and allowed him to get in. It just brought memories to me about what happened in North Carolina before, of someone driving through.
Are you talking about Charlottesville?
Charlottesville. So
yeah, it's
that was the first thing that came to mind when I saw that. So it's not a good thing. I don't think it's not a good thing for us as a society. It's not a good thing for the Wyatt and for their employees acting this way.
All right. I think that story will find its water level, and hopefully cooler heads will prevail all the way around. In the meantime, what is your executive summary on that which has occurred here with the Ed Commissioner's takeover notice last week?
Yeah, so the document that she sent us is what I was expecting. I think that based on the conversations that were had before, going to the different forums, listening to the parents complain, we heard more stories that were even worse than what is already in the report. People coming to testify. Some of the toughest one for me were the parents of kids with learning challenges and with disabilities, that they were not getting the services that they need. So I was expecting that this was going to be coming from RIDE. Now we're just going through the process of reading the document, looking at the legal part of it. There have been some questions that have popped up from some council members. I'm still waiting to hear from others to see what are the concerns that they have. But one of the ones that I can tell you that came up earlier is, what does this mean? Does this mean that the commissioner gets to tell us that we have to raise taxes in order to send more money to the school? So there's some question about the legality in there that we're looking into, whether...
Yeah, it's a weird hybrid. I don't think the Crowley Act, in as much as that it was written for well intents a couple of decades ago, and the Crowley Act, by the way, is the underlying document that the Ed Commissioner is relying on, which really was designed in part to take over a school rather than a district, I think.
Yes.
You know, the district is the taxing authority, but they're the ones that are going to now spend all the dough.
Yeah.
It'll be very interesting to see who argues with the council about appropriations for the schools. Is it RIDE? Is it the school board? Does the school board become more or less defunct? These are things that the commissioner is going to have to outline in this 30, well, I'm not sure that she's outlined it in this 30-day period. She's waiting for the city to come back and say, hold on, so far nothing. It's interesting.
Well, there are 4 stakeholders that can say, hold on.
You, the council.
The city council, the mayor, the acting superintendent, or the school board. As there are the 4 parties that could come back and says, oh, we don't agree with this, or we have some
School
objection
board, though,
to
is
it.
subservient to the mayor. So, I mean, so in Providence, unlike in most towns in Rhode Island, when the school board is elected directly, it's subservient to the mayor. So I see that as the same unit.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the challenges that we had with the school department. The school department, we have the city council. We're the ones that respond to the elector and to the taxpayers, and are the ones that can go to the taxpayers and says, we need more money from the school, I'm going to raise your taxes. But once we get the money and we send it over to the school department, we really don't have a lot of say on what happened there. Then the school board gets to manage the school department, approve the contracts and all that. But they are appointed by the mayor. So the mayor has more of a say on what happens on the school than the city council.
We're going to pause here. We'll come back and we'll outline where we've been on this and where the council is in I don't know, contrast to where the mayor is, if there is one. Stay with us. In case you've been on a long summer vacation, here's the latest.
actually shameful that we are where we are.
Rhode Island Education Commissioner Angelica Infante Green laying out sweeping powers for herself in a new order to take over Providence Public Schools. The order says, quote, PPSD is failing to fulfill its duty to its students. The district is failing them at staggering rates despite significant financial resources and interventions and support from the state.
Right now, it's just not working. The system is broken. We need to do something about it. And nothing has been done for the last 30 or so years. So this is our chance.
This is not the school turnaround plan. That comes later, but rather the legal rationale for the state to take control later this year. It says Infante Green will exercise all powers and authority currently exercised by the Providence School Board and superintendent, as well as all powers and authorities currently exercised by the mayor of Providence and the Providence City Council as it pertains to the schools.
There's nothing in there that I would object to.
The plan calls for a 3-year takeover with the option to extend and a state turnaround superintendent who Infante Green will hire.
We're looking for someone that has experience doing this kind of work so we can hit the ground running.
She says her broad powers do include the ability to change or renegotiate contracts if she wants, including the teachers union contract and custodial contract.
All of the contracts are on the table right now.
You like her?
I do. I think she has a tough job in front of her. I think she cannot do it alone. It's not like she's going to be having a magic wand and say everything's fixed. She needs to have the support of the elected officials, of the individuals that have been involved with the Providence School Department all along. But most important, she needs the parents' support. The parents have to be there. If not, she's not going to be successful.
What kind of elected and professional guilt do you feel as an elected official, along with everybody else, to see this reinforcement of failure?
I have said it before. I think we all owe an apology to the parents and to the students of Providence. We all have to take our share blame on this and just admit that we let the parents down, we let the students down, and we have to do better. We have to be committed to do better.
Well, does that mean that you should have I mean, you're in a unique position. Again, you appropriate and then you just kind of, watch,
Yeah.
maybe you weigh in on, major issues that the municipal and school issues. But for the most part, it's really not your bailiwick. But I think the city ought to just do everything it can to just get the hell out of the way.
And I've been told that before, and I think that that's not right. Like, I have tried to intervene in issues with the school, and every time I do, I've been getting pushback telling me to stay in my lane. And when 52% of the city budget goes to the school, I believe that's my lane, because I'm the one that have to go.
Okay, so this is interesting, and this is what is the complicated politics of this.
Yeah.
When I say the city should get the hell out of the way, you say, wait a second, I've been trying to be constructive, but I've been told that I should stay in my lane.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's the mayor telling you to stay in your lane.
Part of the administration, some pushback from the school board.
Give me an
and
example.
some council members
Give me an
also.
example of something in the past that you wanted to see accomplished or wanted to influence, and you were told, mind your own business.
So the school department is projecting for the next 5 years a deficit that's going to go to close to $40 million, right? I remember a big issue in which I tried to intervene is a contract that the school signed with a company to provide communication with the parents. We already had a system in place. It felt that the school department was trying to get something that they want, but not something that we need. And they were counting, we have the money available. There's money available from this grant. But my point is, after that grant is gone, what's going to happen? Who's going to pay for it? We're going to have that contract. We're going to be responsible for it. So that could be an example in which I tried to intervene.
Did you have a solution, or you just were raising a red flag in that particular matter?
Raising a red flag because my belief is that we were not using the system that we already have to the full potential, and instead of signing a contract
Yeah, that
with
happens
another
all the time,
company.
by the way. There's shiny new money from the feds and grant programs that are all over the place.
Yeah.
It goes all the way back to the Clinton administration when it came to, hiring police. They had all that federal money that came in, but it was a sliding scale, and for 5 years, there was no federal money, and you were expected to keep those police officers
Yes.
online. Now
Just
we're
like
still
that.
100 down in Providence based on the reality that that money couldn't be locally generated.
Yeah.
So I get your point. But for all intents and purposes, the city is viewed as an entity, and based on the unique charter,
Yeah.
It's got to, and this is a whole lot less, I think, about the council than it is about the administration. I still think that this mayor has been abominable in terms of transparency, has been almost comatose when it comes to providing what I would have done if I was the mayor on the facilities alone. On the facilities alone, I would have said, here's my audit. They just put out a report that said the place is falling apart. Every school, I'm going to give you status, not only on capital funding and the $20 million in capital expense he keeps talking about, but the miscellaneous maintenance issues that are quality of life matters. Here's what sink doesn't work. Here's what tile needs to be replaced. Here's what rat keeps running around the place in each school, and triage it and publicize it.
Yep.
He hasn't done it. Why isn't the council formally demanded it and used your bully pulpit?
Oh yeah, yes, but this is not the first time we go through a similar situation. I don't know if you remember that the Department of Justice had a lawsuit against the school department, right? And there was a letter that was sent from the school department. The city council never got a copy of that letter. We asked for it. We were asking, do we need to fill out a freedom of information request in order to get that? So we had our share of frustration in dealing with the school department because we had been trying to get more information, understand what's going on. I honestly believe that if the Justice Department is suing the school department, is suing the city council should be briefed on that and should get a copy of that letter to see exactly what is the complaint.
Well, you're the funding entity.
Yes. Yes.
So even though the school department is not necessarily at you on a Carullo Act basis, and you need to know that in this confounded setup in Rhode Island, the school committees directly elected can sue city councils or town councils if they don't think they're well funded. The only winners in that are the lawyers. But even though the school committee is not directly elected, you guys still have contention between you, no doubt, and that's part of the dysfunction. It's part of what we see ending up in the poor curriculum performance. I mean, this is such a complicated conversation, no doubt. But the politics of the city need to be ended for the schools, which is why I think the city has to be removed completely from the picture for a fixed period of time so that all of this turbulence doesn't get in the way.
And that's why I'm in support of the state getting involved, because I think what we need is to recreate.
Involved or in charge?
In charge. In charge.
There's a big difference.
No, in charge for some time, because we have to remember they're not going to be there forever. And that's what I want to make sure there's no loss in the conversation. What is going to happen once the state is not involved? What is going to be the structures that are going to be in place? And my hope is that by the state taking control, once they're ready to leave, they're going to have a government structure for the school department that makes sense. Because right now, the government structure that we have doesn't make sense.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk about, I think, an interesting constituent dynamic that's all wrong in my mind. Stay with us.
The thing about it is I wish I could say it was one school. I wish I could say it was just two schools. It's just too many schools throughout the district. And that's just unacceptable, and it's been that way for decades.
We're already saying very clearly our schools need work. Nobody's denying that, and we're working hard to fix it. They'll be clean and adequate, unfortunately, but they'll also be rodent-free.
The new superintendent, Fran Gallo, has a terrific resume. She's a high-quality person. But the notion that she's going to shake this whole thing up in a 90-day period interimly, or maximally in terms of her stay based on state rules, is a joke. It's a joke. And I don't know, right now, as far as I'm concerned, the superintendent, the interim superintendent, ought to just be, taking informal notes from the states as to how they want to go about business.
But there's a lot of work that needs to happen in order to open the schools on time.
Oh, no, listen, the bureaucracy's got to function. Yeah. But she's talking about culture change, that she's going to be a change agent for 90 days. Well, you know what? Everyone's going to have their own little culture. And, of course, the superintendent's going to name a turnaround agent, the turnaround superintendent. The commissioner will hire the superintendent.
Yeah.
Look, the dynamics and the politics of this, you and I talked about this on the radio the other day. So the mayor puts out this whole thing where he's talking about having 6 schools be cleaned up by the community, as if it's an opportunity for the community to come out and clean the schools that serve their neighborhoods. You may have a one-off situation in some of the suburbs in Rhode Island that way, but to have some kind of program like that in response to the Johns Hopkins story is what I consider to be the systemic racism that exists in this country. What in heaven's name is different between city residents, many of whom are Black, Latino, and Hispanic? I mean, this is a minority community. You guys walk and chew gum exactly the way I do, and should be insulted just like I would be if my taxpayer investment is now my responsibility to give up Saturday and make sure I wear hard shoes so I don't break my toes when the ceiling is bars. What is that?
What I think is the condition of the schools. They are in so bad shape that it's not going to take just the parents to come in and let me help clean it up.
But there shouldn't even be a thought.
Well,
this is not a Habitat for Humanity project. This is the public asset. This is the hundreds of millions of dollars that are funded to run those schools. Why are those constituents, why is their elbow grease appropriate when that would never happen in my town in Cumberland?
And I agree with you on that point, but what I have to say is there's an opportunity and a role to have a community involved in participating on painting a school. I can tell you, in my neighborhood, the William DeBay School, there was a company, Track Builder, who built some of the housing, affordable housing in the neighborhood. And after they were done with building the affordable housing, they wanted to do something for the community, and they painted the school, which was great because the school looked like it was closed.
But that's the currency of being able to do business in the city.
I understand.
That's very different.
But this is a way in which community got involved. I think what is being planned right now is
not the same thing.
It's not the same thing. What they're being and plus, it takes a lot of preparation. My concern is, I'm not sure that the administration understands the level of preparedness that needs to happen in order to get many volunteers.
Well, you get a director of public properties who swears up and down he's going to have the place ready, and I think he's earnest. He doesn't really know who he reports to. He says, I report to everybody, which is part of the sloppiness of Providence city government, I think, in many ways. Don't you agree?
He reports to the mayor. At the end of the day, he reports to the mayor.
Yeah, well, guess what? The mayor doesn't seem to express or understand or even get close to the urgency that is required here. And the marketing of the response that's necessary.
So in that I have problem with, because the community coming together and clean up is being portrayed as it even has a label, all in. Like, this is not about marketing. This is about what we need to do in order to
well, I think it's
have
an
the
insult.
school ready.
I think it's an insult, and I don't think many of the communities in this state would tolerate that kind of leadership. Anyway, your perspective is appreciated. Thank you. Keep up the conversation with us, I hope, because it's going to be an interesting run here.
Appreciate
your time.
And keep the heat in the city. We need to do better. So keep it up.
Sabina Matos, the president of the City Council. Last word next. I think you can get a little flavor of the tangled web that is Providence city government. Listen, no city government is 100% efficient, but this place is dysfunctional. And at least the city council president understands, for the most part, that while funding questions remain, they need to get out of the way. They really do. All right, we'll talk some basketball with Mike Martin from Brown, who was at the Pan American Games tomorrow night. See you on the radio at 3 on WPRO tomorrow. Bye.